No, that's the best part about it, you don't sleep on the train.
Well, we enjoyed the sleeping.
Did you? Okay. I last slept on a train in 1976, and I haven't slept on one since or had any real.
The only disadvantage sleeping on a train is the shower. You back into it, or you back out. You don't turn around it. I'm a little person. Imagine what my son will do, or somebody who bigger than me would do all the time.
Good morning, Ashley. Ashley?
Yes,
Eddie, nice to meet you.
nice to meet you as well. It's a pretty good carpet.
Nice to meet you. You
And
know,
Mason, I know you.
you Mason?
Hi, Mason.
Actually, Mason boy.
Nice to see you.
Ashley is a resident. Brad,
Hey,
George.
Brad Hester, yeah.
Good to meet you. And of course, good to see you. How are you?
She's got her, well, she's gonna tell us. I'm waiting for, Elizabeth should be here.
Okay, good.
Ann's gonna be late. And the maintenance guys are not gonna be here. They're starting a big project. They're gonna be busy for a long, long time. So you passed? Yeah.
Yes,
Good for
I
you.
will have, I have all my Georgia licenses there. I'm already working with Department of Ag up here, and I'll have my licenses, transferred over probably in a week.
Okay, beautiful.
I have a form I have to do, but I haven't done it yet, because I just sent you this morning.
Yeah. Got in?
Then I've got, I'm meeting with Margot, and I'm meeting with Abigail.
Okay, from the Hemlock people.
Yeah, well, Mario's with the Hemlock Group, and then Abigail's with College, she's the one who's been doing the monitoring.
Okay, that sounds good.
Making progress.
There's a woman supposed to come today from the Swannoa Valley Tree Alliance.
Okay, good.
Lorinda, and who I know well, because we're part of that now. We're off the record, yeah. And they're starting another program, which she may speak about that, a chestnut program.
That's gonna be a stretch, but
Yeah, hopefully she'll talk about it a little bit.
what I've read on chestnuts is that there are, no viable species presently. So if we can find something that's gonna be viable, that'd be a great investment.
It's beyond my pay grade.
They're not reproducing. They die before they're reproducing.
Well, right, so, that being not a problem, right?
So, George,
You wanna just keep lying?
what time is it? 9. Is it 9? Okay, 2 minutes, 2-minute warning. I was in a part of Asheville, they had a lot of chestnut trees. Is that right?
What?
I was in another part of Asheville last week. There are chestnut trees there.
They're hybrids, and they're experimental, and they're hopeful.
Oh, okay, okay,
But this work could go on after.
okay.
There is a place in Maine that has mature chestnuts, and I'll think of the name of the town for some odd reason. Never been touched.
There's some hope.
Who's here? Oh, that was Elizabeth. We'll wait for her.
Castine.
As soon as I saw Elizabeth, we'll wait for her.
Yeah, she should go left.
Yeah, I saw her coming along. I'll wait. So Elizabeth, Ashley, you're here full time now? Great.
I have no plans to go anywhere after conference next go to July, but I'm here through right now.
Great.
They need to figure it out.
Good morning, Elizabeth. Good morning. I think there should, yeah, sit up here. I think there's, you have, your agenda for you in a minute. At least an agenda at a minimum. You got one? Okay, all right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Town of Montreat's monthly tree board meeting. Today is Tuesday, June the 10th, 2025, and we'll get started. It's 9:05 a.m. First, welcome everybody for coming. A nice turnout. Ann should be here very soon. Also, the maintenance men will not be here today. So let's have a moment of silence, keeping in mind those who are ill, those who are affected by terrorism and violence, and those who have been affected by the hurricane. All right, thank you. All right, so in front of you should have a copy of the May 13th minutes, which I wrote up. I've just pretty much put down the highlights. We did not have a quorum at the last tree board meeting. So if you had a chance to review them, any additions or corrections? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve them? Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved by George Sauer and second by Elizabeth. Okay, Hamilton, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. All right, in front of you should have the agenda. Now, the agenda and the minutes are now being posted regularly on the town website. Good morning, Ann. So I have not been sending them to you because they're getting out there in a timely way now. So if you had a chance to review the agenda, anybody have any questions about the agenda, or can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Okay, Elizabeth moves to approve the agenda. A second.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Blake. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Elizabeth, would you like to give us an update on the hemlocks and results, which I think you discussed last week?
Sure.
And the future plans for the hemlock program, which I think is going to become a regular item here at the tree board on a year-to-year basis.
I hope so. Could you pass one to them and then one out to Ashley, maybe? We just have to share, because I didn't.
We'll
did a
share.
This is the tree board, I'm going green, so
Okay, there you go.
maybe Pat, here, we can share this one, and then Ashley can do that one. So this is basically, and I can send a copy electronically to whoever needs it for the notes, if that's easier. Anyway, in April. Okay, April 29th, we had the tree board. The hemlock treatment, I really want to thank the volunteers and the donors, and you'll see all their names there on the page. Gil, Clay, Ashley, special thanks to Joe Standard for all his efforts. He was definitely instrumental in making all this happen. And then the HRI staff was also here. But especially the donors and volunteers were crucial. If you turn the page, or on the back of your first page there, we treated 124 trees. I think it actually might be a couple more, because it seems like there's a couple that didn't get recorded quite right. So the trees are marked. There's all kinds of details about the average breast height diameter, so that's how big the tree is, kind of at chest level. Our total project cost, which is the HRI staff, they came out and surveyed a couple times. There's the chemicals, there's their manpower. It was a little over $2,700. They work on a cost share basis, and so our cost share was half of that, which is $1,360. In our hemlock account, which is part of under the tree board, under the town, there would still be $190 left in that account. So we're good on what we did in April so far. There's the total of volunteer hours, over 70 hours. A few of those were by kind of friends of Montreat, somebody who took up our daughter, and then a gentleman who lives over in Swannanoa, who's over here very often. Plus there were some additional hours measuring marking. Just to kind of summarize what we did quickly, on the map, you can see the circle, that's where we focused. The lake is probably the easiest thing to identify on that little map. And I'm sorry if anybody tuned in remotely. Anyway, it's basically from the gate up to the field is where we focused, along the town property, so on the creek side of the road. And partly this became our focus because MRA said they had treated 80 trees in April of '24, and they gave a long list of locations where they had treated. I'm not sure, but they didn't mark the trees well, so we're a little vague on which ones they actually treated at that time. Just so people kind of have a feel for what happened in April, I just included some of the many photos. I think Ashlyn may have taken some of these. We had an orientation, we did safety, we did protocols for protecting ourselves, for protecting the environment, how to mark the trees, how to measure the trees. So lots of good information was given out, and then we went out in small groups and actually treated the trees. So just, it was a really, really good day. So just put in some photos on that. So kind of quickly moving on the last page, there were 15 trees identified for trunk injections. Joe Standard has reached out for 3 bids on how much that's going to cost us. And one tree didn't have a good measurement, so we're kind of running down details on that. So those trunk injections are still kind of to be determined. Trees would need, we did drenching of the soil. So basically you take liquid and you pour it around the trees, or in some cases you sprayed the chemicals onto the bark of the tree. The trunk injections are because of the size, because of the location, because of a couple different factors, but some trees we just could not treat. So anyway, we're trying to run that down. So one of our next steps is, kind of seeing if that's possible to do. And then timing, location, budget for additional treatments in coordination with MRA or the Cottagers Association, of course, working in conjunction with the town and the town arborists. There's a lot of different groups here in Montreat. So that would be possibly further along Flat Creek, other town right-of-ways. There's roads all over the valley with trees along them. There's previously, Joe is pretty familiar with exactly where, but up on Rainbow Trail, up in some of the conservation areas, there were some trees treated up there. So that might be in conjunction with MRA rangers or something. And then I think probably importantly is outreach, encouraging homeowners to treat or engage professionals to treat their trees. Education about hemlocks as one of the foundation species of our forest here. So that was a lot of information, kind of summarizing, but overall, the 29th, it was a really, really good day. And again, thanks to, volunteers and donors who really made that possible.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
On volunteers, how are the hours tracked on volunteers, and how are they tracked?
So for this particular work day, we had a sign in and a sign out sheet. And so then the hours were tallied up off of that, which is this, by Montreat residents and by the Friends of Montreat. So we have an Excel with the numbers on those.
And the sign in out sheets are retained, you get them?
I can get a copy of them. They were retained by the HRA since they were running the actual physical paper sheets were retained by HRI. But if you need a copy, we can get a copy.
The Arbor Day asks for statistics like numbers of volunteers and things like that. So we'll need to, at some point, need to be able to make that report to them.
Okay. Okay, I can send you the tally sheet.
Yeah. I may or may not be the person to do that, but I'll certainly be glad to help.
And I think, Elizabeth, the hours go towards the Tree City application as well?
I don't know
right?
what Tree
Yes.
City involves.
Oh, that's
that-
right. Oh, you
that's part
said,
of our-
okay,
that's
you said,
part of our-
okay, got you. Okay,
Okay.
good, all right.
And I'm just curious about the trunk sizes or the tree sizes. What are the criteria for injection? Can you roughly, is it, you said size,
Some of it's size, some of it's proximity to waterways, because or wellheads would probably be one of the major criteria, because you don't want, it's actually a chemical, and you don't want that chemical getting into either our drinking water or the Flat Creek, because it could harm the populations in the creek.
Thanks.
Once again, Elizabeth, thanks for all the hard work. So do you see this as something that is usually done once a year and only can be done once a year?
I think that's a discussion I know, can we open to the floor too, or not? I don't have one of these things.
Okay,
Anyway,
all right.
I would like to see it
Okay.
become something routine. There are windows of opportunity to treat,
Okay.
which is more dependent, it's dependent slightly on the weather. If the ground's frozen, you obviously can't pour liquid on the ground because it's not going to soak
Right.
in. If the trees are completely in a dormant phase, so if it's very hot and they're not growing. And then there's also the life cycle of what you're trying to reach and impact. And so if it's a phase of the insect's life, I guess insect's the right word. If it's not in a phase where it can be reached, then that's also not a good time to treat. So there's some windows of opportunity that I think would be good to take advantage of. So this is something that, and then, of course, there's availability of funds and manpower. So it all kind of has to form together, but it would be nice if we could kind of maintain and improve our forest canopy in the valley.
All right, so Ashley, you have to come up, yeah.
You can be a subject matter, she's more of a subject matter.
You have to identify yourself, where you live in town, and then we'll talk.
Ashley Manson Moran. I am a full-time resident living at 226 Alabama Terrace. I also have our family home, which is longer to Virginia, and fifth generation Montreal.
Wow.
All right, what questions do you want me to respond to? Any of these questions?
Sure, anything.
So my background is in pest control, and I'm licensed in Georgia, and I've actually just successfully completed my licensing in North Carolina, probably the end of next week. So I've been working on researching and understanding what's been completed to date versus what we're trying to achieve going forward. A couple of things that I have been aware of, which I don't think are newsflashes to anybody, is we have a lot of stakeholders here. We have the college, we have MRA, we have the town, we have the cottagers. There's all of these different groups that we need to engage in a professional manner. And I don't know that we've had a comprehensive strategy around that, and that's something that I'm trying to figure out what makes the most sense. So I'm meeting with Margot in the next couple of weeks. She's the director of HRI, to get more information on how they're tracking, what they're doing, the question about the diameter of the trees. I would love to speak with Joe about the 3 beds and really look at those, because I'm very familiar. We, on our property in Virginia, we have 11 hemlocks, and we've been treating them now for about 15 years. And so I'm very experienced with the injection process, and so I'm happy to work with him on that. The things that I'm interested in doing are, one, connecting with all different parts of Montreat to make sure that we're doing this in a holistic method. Two, I'm also really aware of the environmental considerations that we need to think about. To your point, we are working with 40% imidacloprid, which is highly toxic, and this is not something we mess around with. The last thing Montreat wants to be is to have a spill in Black Creek and then to damage any type of waterway, because we all know this is
What would you say, 40% what?
imidacloprid.
Oh.
Is that the product that was utilized?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
As an example, imidacloprid is also used in flea prevention on your dog. It's 0.05% imidacloprid that you put on the back of your dog.
Oh.
This is 40%.
Wow.
So this is it's very important that we consider the environmental impact of what we're doing. The trees that need to be injected, these 15, I think we'll be very interested if we can get the diameter of those and do that calculation. The trees on our property in Virginia, we pay $18 per inch. So that's going to give you an idea of what we got to come up with.
Wow.
Our 11 trees cost on average about $500 per year. So it's a substantial investment. It is critical, though, to do the injections on these trees that have been identified because they are so close to the waterways. I actually crossed the bridge behind the tennis courts that goes from Assembly to the tennis court side. There's a tree right there. It is leading fully into the water, and it's got a yellow ribbon around it. I went, yep, that one definitely does not need the soil treatment. And And so there's a few that are identified like that. If they cannot be treated, they will likely die. They're all in very bad shape, so we just need to look at that. The timing, to your point of the treatments, this is very important for a couple of reasons. One, because of the life cycle of the insect and where they are on the tree and how they will be receiving insecticide. The second piece is we have a tremendous effort of releasing beetles within the Montreal community. It's been going on since 2015, correct me if I'm wrong. I do have all of Joe's records. These beetles are essential and really the long-term solution that we need to be working with. But if we treat in the summertime, we risk killing the beetles because the beetles are in the ground and around the trees in the summertime. And if we pour 40% of it over, we're going to wipe out the beetle population. So there's other pieces that we need to be looking at. And so I'm going to meet with Abigail at the college who's doing beetle tracking, and we'll work with her to figure out where we are, because I'm really interested in the spread of beetles and what areas they're protecting. Do you have specific questions I can answer for you?
No, no. Maybe somebody else may have, I don't. My only, the one issue I have is making, the town can only treat trees on the right of way. Okay. So, but if we don't help the residents treat their hemlocks, it kind of, you know, I think that's, we should be trying to do that. And I'd like to see you, and I know we have arborists in town,
Yes.
but part of the staff, who obviously can't do private residences, but you are an independent arborist, is that correct?
So what I would be planning on establishing is a offering to private residents
Okay,
who would like to have
okay.
assistance with that.
Right, okay.
Again, I do have some very strong environmental concerns about it. I want to make sure that
Okay.
we're not encouraging do-it-yourselfers to be working at 40% of the load. I think that is a risky
Right.
thing to launch treatment environment. So,
Okay.
I am working on that. I don't really have a lot of details at this point that I can
Okay.
share, but that is something that I would like to engage in and
Okay.
assist with.
Right, which we've talked
Yeah.
about.
I was just going to throw out, there are some on the Hemlock Restoration Initiative, which is the group that looks at hemlocks all over Western North Carolina, and the ones that came in, and we worked under their licenses for the treatment back in April. On their site, they do have directions for people who want to treat their own trees. I don't know that what you go out and buy in Home Depot or Lowe's or Town Hardware is as strong. I haven't looked into that. But anyway, they do have names of arborists, and they do have information on how to treat. So we can certainly piggyback on groups like that do, that have, there is information out there that people are going to find if they just hit Google, how do I treat my hemlocks? Hopefully that would be a site that would pop up versus what Google otherwise normally returns.
Right,
So,
okay.
yeah.
But I also hear you saying that it can be detrimental, if people start doing their own and they don't know what they're doing, they can really cause a lot of damage.
Well, after 15 years in pest control, I have found and I have seen that some of the worst environmental damage that has occurred in any industry environment has been because of the DIYers.
Right.
Because they think, oh, well, this is great, let's just do it twice as much. And then you have a cycle of pesticide abuse, which is against the law, and then you also have the impacts of other species. Or those kinds of things.
So I have a question for Commissioner Blake. Does the town require a resident to pull a permit to treat trees with chemicals?
I'm aware of no.
Okay, all right.
There probably would be state licensing at some point. But if the hemlock folks are putting out chemicals that are readily available at a Home Depot,
At Home Depot, Town Hardware, you can buy it.
I don't think there's anything that prevents them. Hopefully, it's not the same strength that the commercial insecticide.
Yeah.
So most of the time, what's on the shelf for DIY products is a reduced percentage. But we have to rely on the training of the residents.
Does it work?
Either you have to train them really well, or you have to provide a lot of impact with the product.
Do the things off the shelf work? You're talking about 0.5 versus 40%.
Well, 0.5 is what you put on the back of the dog.
Right, but you said that's,
I did a little bit of research on accessing these products, and so it is accessible, yes. I mean, and there's also very prudent methods that can be done, which are not as successful, but can be done regularly.
But I think Ashley makes a good point. We've just, Montreat's, we all know, special. We've got all these waterways right here, and having that chemical used that close to waterways and places is a dangerous proposition if it's, whether it's 20% or 40%, so.
And then what I would, as I've told several, I'm doing the research just because I care about Montreat, and this is what I want to make sure we do it right. So I'm doing this to make sure that we do it right. And if, if we can all hold and let me kind of dig into it, and I can come back to you all with a proposal, that I'm happy to do that.
Right.
There's no point in treating the summer. It doesn't work.
Okay.
So we've got until early October until the next opening occurs, when it's an appropriate time to treat again. But I think in the meantime, we need to identify, private property that might have
Right.
some really at-risk trees. I just walked the dog, I've seen many. And so, providing that information to a homeowner, there's a lot of time to do networking and education throughout the summer when everyone's here. And I think it's a great opportunity, but we just need to make sure we
We're
do
good.
it in an all-encompassing.
Thank you, and we're going to make that happen over the summer. I promise you that. And we'll talk more about how we're going to do it, but thank you for your expertise and sharing it.
Yeah, I have a thought about it. I really think that we should take some leadership in this in terms of providing guidance, rules, help to people about what to do. I think we should be clear ourselves on what is our responsibility and what is not our responsibility, because we're public trees and there's lots of private trees.
Right.
I've got 2 or 3 in my yard that, may or may not need attention.
Okay.
The beetles are good in the sense that they put them along Assembly Drive, and I live a block away, and, a few months later, it was clear that the beetles had been effective that far, so.
They-
My house on Alabama, I have one tree within the lots of right in the front yard, and it is what I call a happy lawn. It has got bright green tips on it right now. It is happy and growing, and I'm sure it's because the beetles next door to the post office were delivered there 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's very effective.
Yeah, the beetle, there's been some studies in other areas about the spread of the beetles. I don't know if the college has done, any research on the spread of the, mine's on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know if that would be an interesting thing, or, the ranger hikes this summer, if they're going up on ridges, to actually beat on the trees and see if there are beetles, or wherever we're hiking this summer, to see.
Colleges
So,
tracking the spread, and that's some information I'm looking for.
So Elizabeth, Ashley, sorry, we meet monthly, every Tuesday. Maybe you can come back next month with some, thank you. And then we'll talk in between then and see how official we'll make it, but that would be great. All right, any other questions for Ashley?
Yeah, on the woolly not on the woolly adelgid, but the beetles, yeah. I know several years ago, right after they had been released, some of the college classes, the environmental classes, were helping to go around and check them during the winter time to see what was working and to shake them and, check all that good stuff that they do. And I think if we're not on the agenda for some of those classes, I'm not sure I'm not sure if it's Josh Holbrook now who's in charge of all of that. We need to get them involved again, and I think it's a good way to get the kids involved in the community as well.
My understanding is that Abigail leads the effort. She has a lab class.
Oh, good.
Go out and do testing as part of one of her classes.
Wonderful.
I have the release locations, but I don't have for the spread locations yet.
Yeah.
And so where they're seeing and how they're seeing and that kind of thing. And so I'm in the process of communicating with her, and she and I are planning on meeting for the
Great.
Thank you, Ashley.
So just by way of information, The Monterey Comprehensive Plan that was adopted several months ago, it tasks the tree board with a couple of specific things, and part of that is convening conversations between MRA, college, and stuff. So we have the go-ahead to use that kind of mechanism if it works to develop these plans and things. We could.
I'm well networked into all the communities at this point, and so I'm just waiting to get my meetings with them and kind of understand what's been happening. So most of my research to date has been on what we've done with HRI and what the status is within the community, and so now I'm ready to start touching into the other groups and figuring out what they've been doing and who's been in charge of it and how it's occurred. I'm also kind of brainstorming a little educational program for clubs, for kids, because if we can have the children identifying unhealthy hemlocks, that would actually really help. So, if we can get the education out there, it's going to be a great asset.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So much. All right, moving on. Ann, for the Fall Arbor Day program, any
Okay,
updates?
yeah, I think we're going to do something a little more than just the fall.
Okay.
But I've got a meeting with Savannah right after this meeting. One of the things, and the main reason is, one of the things I really want to capture are all the summer people who are here, the renters who are here, who have come in and have gone like, OMG. And to let them know how they can replant and to restore their property with non-invasives and what to do. I have talked to Kayla. I had originally planned to do this in April. Talked to Kayla. I've got information about if you live in a floodplain, and just because you live on a creek doesn't mean you live in a floodplain, I found out. So she's got a wonderful map. I'm going to get a copy of this map, and we're going to hopefully do just a flyer or two about, do I live in a floodplain? How do I know? What do I do if I live in a floodplain? Which basically is, you can't do nothing without permission, because there are civil penalties that could very likely happen. If you don't live in a floodplain and you live on a creek, basically you can do natural remedies with the planting or just putting in stones, anything that requires construction or any kind of building permit, you can't do unless you've got the permission to do that. I have lost a flash drive, which
gave it to
had the
me.
volunteer sheet on it.
You gave me flash drive.
I know, but this is a different
another
one
one,
that
okay.
I was working on. That
Okay.
So I have lost some information that I had started working on. The other thing is I want to make sure, not only am I going to show the map so people can see where they live and where the floodplains are. There are only 3 major floodplains in town. Obviously, one of them's Flat Creek. But we don't want people planting invasives. I got this wonderful flyer from the North Carolina Extension talking about riparian stabilization and plantings, and I want to make sure we can get that out this summer. And then this is the one I had asked George about this a while ago. This has been around for a long time that Land Care has had, and it talks about landscaping with native plants and be able to have this available again. We've always had it available during the plant sale, but this year was different. So it's just going to be simple. And then in the fall, I'll look at the calendar, see what we can figure out, and definitely have something. We can talk about the hemlock restoration and about what you're doing, Ashley, and hopefully get some work done for the chestnuts so people know what survived, what planning, and all this stuff we normally would cover. And you have questions?
Just a point, the Cottage annual meeting is July 19th. I believe it's 9 to 11. There will be tables set up around the wall. People will be encouraged to come early, pick up the tables. And I'm sure we can get a couple of tables if we need to print out with, if you want to ask information, actually, hemlocks, it's probably the prime opportunity to get information out to summer people. So.
And I think I'd check to see if the whole program, all summer club programs were full. They'd already been filled. So we can get on there to do a program about the restoration. But we will do that. I forgot about that. I didn't have it in notes. And make sure that we have some displays and be able to have information there for people. And so I've just got to figure out the best way to get you to the town hall to take a look and stuff.
Any questions for you? Are you going to need a budget of any kind?
Pardon me?
Are you going to need a budget?
I don't know. I've got all sorts of weird stuff at home.
Okay.
And I have talked to Ann Jesse, director of the Heritage Center. She's got some wonderful stands that are not as bulky, don't have as big a footprint as some of the others that have been used in the past. And I think we can use just a piece of, got some foam core that I can mount maps and stuff on. I just have to figure out how to distribute flyers. I can put something on it.
What days have mine for summer?
This is get up until the end of summer.
Okay. And fall Arbor Day is
Yeah,
separate
yeah, skip the fall if
So
we
we're
need
two
to.
programs.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's wonderful.
I'll talk with her about length. I personally feel like it needs to be available this summer while people are here and looking at their property. What do I do?
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
You had asked about phone core stuff.
Yeah. You still have those?
I had some. I was ready to give you, it was canceled, so.
yeah, okay. Okay.
There's like this thing I see on from HR I collected when we didn't have this document. Things having QR codes or links to things or I flyers all the time. I don't pick them up. So I don't know how we, get that, whether it's just, a little bitty thing on the town page that this here's a place you can go for information, chestnuts, hemlocks, whatever, people pretty electronic these days. So, and then you don't have to have as many copies necessarily. I'm forever taking photos with my phone of something that's interesting and then trying to remember where I put the photo. But anyway, so kind of, and it's, I think like during the summer, outreach especially to the cottagers because they're property, some of them are property owners, some of them are not, but for treating the trees, we've really reached to property owners, I think. Because long-term renters, part-time renters aren't going to have to trees. And I guess my question is there a way to leverage something at the nature center? It's got a really small footprint, but people do it for nature.
Yeah, and I'll talk to Jason about that and see if we can put some things down there. I don't know, that's not really their focus, but there is the board of the Children's Nature Walks, and I don't know if there's something in there, maybe we can work something in there. Some of these flyers have QR codes on them. This just invasives. Has all sorts of QR codes. I checked this one from the North Carolina Cooperative Extension. I don't see anything on this one. There is something else that she has sent. This one we're going to have to print out. I thought this one has to be printed. This was created before QR codes. And I think so I think if we want to use QR codes, let's find somebody who could do it. At one point, somebody was doing a lot of QR codes for one of the organizations in town. And I'm old-fashioned. I can look at a QR code and go, oh, look, that's what it is. And that's as far as I go. But I also know a lot of other people. People come and say, well, where is it on the website? Well, we have to deal with both the old and the new. The educated and the dragging their feet people. So, I'm dragging.
No, I think it's just how people like to get information. Some people want you to stand there and talk to them. Some people want to read it. Some people want to look it up on their own. So it's.
I like to read. I like to look and read it. So.
I just ran this grant on 2 programs, which I think I hear about it. One in the summer, one in the fall. Thank you.
I'll see what I can do about setting a date for the fall.
Okay, we'll talk. All right, next, Graham, community garden update. Okay, I think the last time I mentioned that I had discovered a piece of property between Virginia and Assembly, but it was once many years ago a community garden. So I met with Kayla, who's our zoning director, and she told me that is right away, and I'm going to read the, I looked at the 2 properties on either side of the salt right away near the community garden proposed that we discussed yesterday. The access to shown on the green space agreement on Buncombe County GIS is accurate to the best of my knowledge. Therefore, this is the good news. It appears that there is public access to the proposed community garden from Virginia Road between properties addresses 112 and 118 Virginia Road. So it is available to us. And then she spoke to me and Commissioner Blakey about this. If we decide to go forward with it as a project of tree board and or land care jointly, if anybody wants to, we're meeting a little early today, maybe walk over there with me and see it. We've never seen it. Where it is. Type of maintenance agreement between the town and us. If you guys give us the authority to maintain the property, something like that. You're not giving us land, but you're saying, yeah, we'll let you have it enough to maintain it. There's like a maintenance agreement, something like that. As long as you don't build on it, you keep it the way it is to that nature. But we have to study. My concern initially was, when you see it walk over with you today, you got to walk through somebody's front lawn or driveway to get to it. But according to the zone director, there is a piece of land that's right in Virginia that is a town right away that we have actually, people may have built a driveway or garden on town property. But we're not going to make a big deal of that. But there's a lot to be developed. The main thing is the concept of a community garden, native launch plant shrubs, whatever, vegetable garden. It's one of the few places in one tree, literally, it's full time. Okay. So, well, you'll see. I wonder if you can walk over with me later. So, any questions about it?
No, it's a great opportunity. We do need to get a title to it to make sure not just it's right way, but that the town could use it. Or commission if it needs to. I don't think it's just a box we need to check. And I just happen to know that Black Mountain has a community garden on the other side of 70. They have individual plots there, and basically the way they operate it, you rent your individual plot. There's no fee, so that will help cover the cost of whatever maintenance has to be done to that garden. And they have actually some personnel there. I don't know whether there might be any opportunity to collaborate with Black Mountain, community garden. I don't know. It's something we check into. But certainly we've got
a lot to develop. It's what the concept is. The land look like
The Black Mountain Garden, I know the Wilson Garden, they also plant for one of the food banks.
yes,
That garden has a requirement for that,
John
yeah.
Campbell or something. But they plant and harvest. I mean, so it's always in the plus.
I was gonna throw mine. And also somebody, I'm not sure if it's the church or the school over here, the Baptist church, back behind there, next to the nursery school, they have a community garden.
If you've never seen it, and you're gonna see it in the next half an hour, it's already fenced, it's already got beds in it, it's got a water source, it's got a shed, it's overrun.
Yeah, and just people in the neighborhood use it for years. I mean,
Right.
Holcomb's planted in there, and it's just been sort of, it's there, let's use it.
The fellow that I've never met him, you probably, Mike Sonnenberg, I think he actually maintained it for many, many years, and then I think he was great, but, all right, so hopefully, I'm gonna walk over there after the meeting, that'd be great. All right, so, let's go into new business. I'm gonna ask Linda to come up. Okay, and she'll introduce herself and what organization she's from, let's get at it, because she's gotta go.
I'm a Ron Royalty. I have a few hats that I wear. Currently here at the Swan Valley Tree Alliance. I'm a member of that group from Black Mountain. I'm also part of the formed literally in the last couple of months. There's going to be a chapter of the North Carolina Federation based here in Swan Valley, and I'm currently the co-vice chair of that group. We have intentions to collaborate with the various communities and groups and homeowners within the Swan Valley and trying to push forward the intentions of the Wildlife Federation for the state, which involve habitat restoration, education, social events for like-minded individuals. And so we are interested in obviously what you guys are doing here, and we are trying to just get out. So we're really looking at our more action in the next month or two. So for that, and then I think we had sort of Palisades radar and last fall because we turn out mountain area, as you know, has a lot of nature lovers, a lot of nations that work on occupying and protecting our habitats and wildlife. So they had reached out to individuals, and I was part of that, and then we had a storm, and so it took us a time, and we sort of re-collected this spring and have that in a way. You also, I was involved in zoning planning, that package, and I'm native, and I've been in my house since 2009. On the west side of the county, and I actually just so anyway, so it's exciting what you guys are doing. Something that I've discussed and come on our radar was what you were doing with the hemlock efforts, and also potentially maybe trying to have a chestnut replanting initiative. I know I can bring that at both of our meetings, the Tree Alliance, and at the we're probably with the chapter that's going to be for the Valley Wild. So with Wild and with the Tree Alliance, I did bring up potential for us to either collaborate or plan together, or at least to share information about what you guys are doing and what we'll be doing. I think education is a really important part of that. Like we do, and there's lots of people that help their community and help their own properties. And so pollination gardens and replantings and treating different species is really important overall. So I think that's
So also, Lorinda and I, when we collaborated, we brought the Treasure Tree Program to Montreat, of which we have 14 treasure trees, 15, oh, right, the Hemlock Grove, it's Hemlock Grove over here on Virginia, right? Okay.
and I have an example of
Okay, other sides came, okay. And I know Mason's got a number of treasure trees, Ann's got a treasure tree on her property from the original 14. We had some damage plaques.
So
Yeah.
there was two damage.
Oh, this is a new one, right?
This is the
Oh, right.
product. We're kind of learning curve. There's a product that was used besides the trees from the Orchard Organization, which started in 2019, and a different product that had their stability that wasn't a laminated product, but that one gets kind of brittle, and something got damaged or storms things hit them, and they were. Also have an aluminum product. It's imprinted directly on the aluminum, so it's pretty solid. So we're going to have success with that, and we just got the replacing it in a new one that's very.
That's the Rhines?
Yes.
You have dog Rhines, Virginia?
Yeah.
I'll take it.
And when I had classes, the other things, I was actually replacing a sign, and so like, your numbers, you're going to screw the tree. We do it in a very intentional way, where we have screening wires, we don't put it all the way into the tree, we space it, and we go back and check on it. So there is a reason why we do it that way. It seems kind of scary that we're able to do that, obviously. Now that doesn't mean something might do something to one of them, I will take it. But anyway, that's how we do it.
And I also want to say the map that you developed and printed is the most popular map at the, where is it, that building? Is that right? Well, Assembly Inn, but when people come through the gate, little house, it's the number one map that people ask for.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love making maps.
She's
So, yeah,
a very talented woman, I can tell you, very talented.
Yeah, it's always nice to provide something that people, if they're interested in, excited, visuals are different things that people can hold on to. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you have any questions, I don't want to share it. So.
Yeah.
Just spell your last name so I'll get the notes right.
Yes, my first name is Lauronda. And some people know me as Maria R-O-W or Teal. I don't know last name, but Teal is T-E-T-E-L.
I try to attend their monthly meetings, which are outside, which is nice, at the city center. It's a great group of people.
Yes, and we are trying, I don't have a firm update, but I'll be sure to get the information. We are trying to have the wood at Sourwood, and there's a gentleman at Woodford that is going to do a demonstration, and he's going to be carving some wood from a treasure tree that fell.
Okay.
And it's going to be displayed at the Swan Valley Museum, and that's going to give us an opportunity to also talk about, having a tree that you sponsor or replantings. We also worked with the town of Black Mountain Storm Market in the spring, and we distributed 120 trees, native species, to the community that were out. And there was a huge demand for that, so we're trying to do that again this fall. So we're trying in that respect. And I know you guys are our community and sort of adjacent as well. You sort of have a lot of groups that we're always looking for opportunities together. So yeah.
That's what we do, right? You and I do well. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay. All right. Commissioner Blake, any updates from the town that relate to the Wheeler Street Board?
Not really. I mean, Barry did a lot of tree removals earlier, but as we got closer to clubs coming in town, the public works is real focused on getting everything as safe for the kids as possible. I know you've seen them working along the roadways, trying to get that done with the little money we've got to do it. And, but that's really it right now. We're working on the budget and hope to get that done this week.
Any questions for Commissioner Blake? Okay. All right, George, any update from Lancaster?
Yeah, I'll be relatively brief. Landcare is made up of a bunch of people who are very, very busy. Much of the time in Montreat and many other organizations outside of Montreat, the June meeting, none of the officers could attend because we were all doing something else. 2 or 3 of the non-officers could attend, did not happen. I learned last week that July is not a month that Landcare meets, so Landcare will not meet again in July. The most important thing for this group now, and I've already shared this over here, is we are putting together a fall program for the community in lieu of not having had a spring program. First of all, because of Helene, we knew it'd be impossible to put one together. And just as important, getting the nursery people to commit to a program in Montreat has become increasingly difficult because of the small crowds that it gathers versus the big plant sale in Black Mountain and in neighboring communities. So we're looking to doing something more of an educational program in fall. It's being worked on. There's a group of people who have been put together to do that. That's where we'll be headed. Not that it's not related to Landcare. I'd like to report that there was a group of students from Durham Academy in Durham, North Carolina, here last week, 2 weeks ago now, 9 students and 3 adult leaders who took on the responsibility of cleaning up the image along Elizabeth's Path. The piles that you've seen along Assembly Drive yesterday were the result of that work. Those kids worked like Trojans. It was a pleasure to work with them. Elizabeth Trail is in much better condition because of it, and I would say the edge of the road it looks better too, because a lot of the stuff we picked up was stuff that's broken up and visible as you drove down Assembly Drive. So the better part, I'd say at least a third of Elizabeth's Trail is back visible again. Might be extending a little bit. The other side of Texas Road is passable. There are 2 or 3 very large trees there, but there's been no real stream damage on that side of Elizabeth Path. From the Rangers hut to the ball field, the path is broken by the broken bridge. So you can get from the Ranger station down to the pump station, and then you have to figure out, oh, right, let's see, now I'm here. How do I find the trail again? So somebody's going to have to remark the path, the end of the path and the start of the path until the bridge is reestablished. Those who know the path could see it, but if you were somebody coming in from the outside world and you got to the place where the bridge is gone, you'd say, oh, okay, what do we do now? So I just wanted to bring you all up to date on that particular project.
Just a note, I noticed George was out there working with those kids, and you're working hard, and thank you, and they really did work hard. I got 20 large piles of trash along that stretch of the road. It was a great job.
George, could in 1 minute tell us exactly, at least, what Landcare, who makes up the Landcare, a group of many organizations, the representatives? I've been to a few meetings.
You wanted a short meeting?
No,
Every organization in Montreat has a representative on Landcare. It's about, I think it's 11 individuals representing the college, the community, the town, the cottagers, tree board. That's why I'm here today, because the chairman of the Landcare has to be a member of the board. I didn't know that when I agreed to be chairman. But anyway, I've learned a lot of things by taking on this job. Like I say, we're all a bunch of very busy people.
What is the mission of the Landcare?
To coordinate, communicate with one another, to try to keep the individual entities aware of what's going on. And actually, I don't understand this part of it. I probably should, because I've got a copy of it. It's an international organization. It's not something to do strictly with Montreat, but it's an internationally recognized organization of all towns and cities who are trying to do this natural communication among themselves in terms of landscaping and care of the land in the community boundaries with all the constituencies of the community. It's quite an elaborate process, actually.
That's very helpful. I didn't know all that. Okay.
Out of Australia.
Thank you. Any questions for George? Okay. Tyler, anything on the inventory update? Your interactions with the maintenance guys on town?
Yeah, pretty much had falling tree for the wind a couple of weeks ago. But other than that, they never looked up anything to be done, but it's trying to get the roadways and culvert picked up, then trying to do the tree. Two of the things that residents need to realize when there's a fallen tree, not to go driving around trying to find the police, just to call them and wire down, don't go near or under it. There was a couple of people going under the wires and driving around trying to find the police when a big tree fell 2-3 weeks ago. So,
The trees are still falling.
I mean, 2-3 weeks ago when we had the highway, there were a couple of them scattered around. Some of them took the power out and people walking under them and stuff like that, and it's like, no. So,
I will say, I mean, when you're driving around, the town looks so much cleaner than just a month ago.
yeah.
Tremendous amount of work being done by maintenance.
I think if I can find it, several years ago, when the first organized, we did a flyer on help a tree has fallen, and what do I do? And I need to probably put that available again. No QR code, but I think it's in that.
I think the flyer box you gave me.
I think it's on the,
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. If he doesn't have it, I think it's on an old flash drive, not my good one.
I have a box you gave me. I
Yeah.
think there's some
Yeah.
literature in there. I'll look for it.
Yeah, and I think it actually is one of the appendices on the tree guide, so. Okay. I will have to double check to make sure that those are the current emergency numbers. Some of those got changed from Blackman, changed their emergency numbers, but we'll make sure that the 2 one is the right number before we publish that.
Any questions for Tyler on inventory, right around and?
Just don't break all the people, unfortunately,
Do they call 911 or they call our police?
the emergency number. 1 out of 10 will call, the other 9 scared to call people for whatever reason.
Maybe they'll go in when you put the flyer in, with the Tyler's suggestion that if they see a tree, call the police, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Because, I mean, they'd be the one that would contact the fire department to make sure that, why don't have fire, come in here, go and touch it, and then get using product or whatever they need to get rid of this bit, or whatever it is.
Okay, Dan?
And those numbers are in that flyer. And also, if it's on your neighbor's street, it addresses some insurance issues as well.
And non-emergency number that they want folks to, there's a police non-emergency number that's available for folks to use, just in terms of
Okay,
that.
yeah, and we'll make sure we get that on all of our flyers.
So when you're looking around at trees and things, do you stick to the roads or where do you look?
You just very, very see 'em, I mean, like, one on gray here, green as it could be, and with that high wind, so, I mean, you know,
What I'm wondering about is that there's a good town property that is not on a road.
I mean, I don't know,
And
I'm not looking.
I'm thinking about, we need to be looking at that, you know, the next between Ben's house and my house, the creek, there's like a good bit of space on each side of the creek that's,
Yeah, I mean-
and that needs attention, but Gene and I are looking at a piece of it, but,
Yeah, like that, I don't, with going up Virginia, Mississippi, or Grand Prix with nothing on it, then it's like, that one dead, but still being green, it's all covered up, can't tell the root if it rotted out or not. So,
So you look mostly at town, like, type properties. You're not
I
looking
mean,
at,
going up, North Mississippi,
right.
And
you
just-
know, back between the house and the other house, you know, being around the trail and stuff.
And so, I mean, just very interested in prioritizing what trees he really needs to remove. Not- It's a sort of a public safety calculation right now. It's the trees that come down first.
I have a question for you, Mason. The stream mediation team, have they come to Montreat? Are they working on, or do we have a clue yet?
Well, the mayor, fortunately, knows and got in contact with the head of the state agency in charge of cleaning up the streams. That's not necessarily remediation, but cleaning up the streams. The federal money and the federal program is gone, okay? The federal government sent notice about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago, that they were terminating that program. They would no longer be spending money on it. Existing programs would be finished. That's it. So wherever they were, they finished up this program. They're going state. Yes, the governor is made pledge to pick up the ball where the feds left it, but also at the same time ask for the feds for money to do it. So the state legislature is still in budget talks. I don't know where that will end. So the answer, I really don't have an answer. Fortunately, we have the attention of the state agency due to thanks to the mayor. And he personally visited here. Personally, the mayor took him to see a good bit of the creek. So he's aware of the situation. He's aware of the need. And so we're in as good a position as we could be given everything that's happened.
Because I know someone asked me if, I think it's one of the creeks that's close to your property, but it's not within the floodplain. And are those, what's going to happen with those? Is that going to take personal cleanup? Is there going to be, state work or whatever? I'd like to find that information, find out about it. It's not legal right now.
Frankly, I think people need to look at what they can clean up themselves, because we're going to be lucky to find the money to do Flat Creek. That's the real truth. And so, and if we get money other than Flat Creek, it's going to be on a high priority basis. That's my guess. The money is going to be $6.
Does Calgary think money's available?
Okay. Is there a place where information about issues like this is brought together? And I'm wondering if the tree board has some role in that budgetary thing for anything that's good for us to know where the problems are.
Could you be a little more specific, please?
Trees down everywhere, that will need to be addressed at some point. I can talk about the ones I know about, which is one that's next, like I mentioned before, between Ann's house and my house. Actually, before the big storm, I was taking out some other units, fell into and across that creek. When the storm came, it contributed to major erosion along the bed of that creek. It needs to be painted. Yesterday, Gina started talking about taking that tree out. So I'm just wondering if there are probably other places where there are trees, the Tyler spots are that we should find some way, kind of like keeping a log of things so that we have a sense of what we might be facing.
I think it's a good idea, but Aiden suggested putting it on the Montreat Minute. If you see something, say something. I've seen a number of trees. I'll call Barry, one up on Louisiana, one up on North Carolina Terrace. He gets there eventually. That's real safe. The other, just aesthetically, looks ugly. He makes it up there, but I think the idea of reporting in is important, and that people have to know where to call.
Is it possible that we could do a communication, say, from the whole tree board, not only through the Montreat Minute, but also with the This Week in Montreat, to reach a lot of the people because some of the people who get This Week in Montreat or the conference center reports aren't on the sunshine list.
I think the more places we put it, Firewise puts out some alert, Montreat Minute, the neighborhood at Montreat, we can lot on, and wherever we can, but it should be one central place to call for sure. I think we have those numbers now, right? There's not an emergency number to tree down, and you call. It'll be up to the maintenance department to determine, it should be removed or will be removed. High priority, low priority.
I think it's good to separate out, here's this creek, here's this street, or here's this issue, it's my issue or a neighbor's issue versus what is actually the town's responsibility. Or maybe it's MRA or cottages still on land, and there's a lot of stakeholders and there's a lot of different kinds of land. And so I think being clear what it is that we're asking for, because there's not a lot of, it's not like somebody can report something and something's going to get done. And sometimes that leads to frustration, like, hey, I don't care, my road's bumpy, the street looks bad, and then nothing happens, and then people get frustrated. So managing expectations
Right.
are really important.
Yeah, Elizabeth is real touch on something, and let's be sure that all of the public works people are totally overworked now. They don't, if they don't have, they need to prioritize whatever time they're going out and looking at a tree and showing whatever, it needs to be a issue. Right now, and we need to address those, but right now, their time's taken up so much with the restoration process. The roads and the creeks, frankly, come first. If a tree can sit there dying for a while, we're not going to save it from dying. I mean, hopefully the hemlocks and things, but I mean, if it's not a public safety issue, it'll be there 6 months from now, or a year from now.
I think it would be important also for people to actually make sure they know who owns the creeks that run close to their property. Not all of them are town-owned or town-maintained. A lot of them are on private property. And if you have a creek on your property, you're responsible for keeping that clean and for making sure that it's taken care of. You don't need to call the town to do it, because I know they're overwhelmed. But I think it's important for people to know, property owners need to know, they have a responsibility to know what they own and what they need to maintain, whether they rent it out or live there or whatever. It's not all the town's responsibility.
I think Mason makes, that's why, it's public safety is number one issue. It's number one issue. And people, I mean, if a tree falls on my yard, I'm calling the town. I mean, I know that's my responsibility. People, I think, figure that out. That's different. Right, okay, right, exactly. I can come up with a flyer before you, and maybe, because some good, I think it's right up Boggy Lane Park. I heard a lot of that. We don't want to do that. And they're
But we do need to call the police.
So maybe a
Call the police when
flyer.
a tree is in.
Right, so,
The flyer, put Barry's email address on it, but he email instead of a phone call, knowing that people been blowing up his phone for all kinds of nonsense stuff. Then he can get your email when he gets to it, and he can look at it when he does, and don't call him at 9 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock morning saying this, when he can be bugged 24/7 over stupid things.
I think I'll be happy to take a look at that flyer again, and I will not put in any of the public works phone numbers or email addresses without their express permission. That is one rule I have and I've had for years. I don't want mine given out. I refuse to do it unless I have express permission. And generally, if they're public employees, basically we're okay, but I will double check with Barry to see what address we can use.
so we come up with a flyer, and then come up with a flyer, and I'll distribute it among some members before we put anything out there. Between the next meeting. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. The maintenance department report, they called this morning. They have a big project going on somewhere near the gate. So that's that. Public comment, Ashley, we got Lorinda. Any other public comments? Ashley, anything you want to add? Okay. Any other general tree board announcements? Other than I'm going to walk up to this piece of property for people who want to come up with me. It's right. It's literally a 5-minute walk. All right. Any other business? All right. A motion to adjourn. Okay. Doug? Okay. All those in favor? All right. Thank you all for one meeting.
Great job, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anybody want to meet?
Sure, I'll go look.
I would love to, I can't get somewhere, but I know where it is. And it's, I know it's right next to the big building.
Okay. I'll walk on that.
Where, with that PDF. Okay, look to it. Okay, that, so, this is what they probably, like Ed and me, or whoever were here, I didn't have the numbers. So, the secretary?
Yep.
Okay, so, what's your email?
Brad.
BradHester@gmail.com. Okay, just gonna off.
Yeah, that's fine.
Take off. There's electronic, you can cut and paste whatever the heck you want to do. I'm just gonna do it electronic, we didn't have text. So we did, back to me, but should have, yeah, just meant so. Okay, anyways, that we set up the price, that's the back of it, not anything.
That's right.
this must be all